And we are back for another edition of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. It's Jonathon Howe with you, Travis Cunningham with my co-host, as always. And this is episode 53, brought to you by Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Travis, episode 53. Who are you going with for 53? Because there you got a couple options for this number.
Well, I'm going to start with a couple. This one's not all that local, but I run Panther Frameworks, and he owns Panther Frameworks, and he's fifth in ESS points right now. Already got a win. And I talked to him quite a lot. Sean Donoff, he's run up here quite a bit. He led the Sprint Car Nationals one year for at least 10, 15 laps. And then who else we got? Logan Schwedick, and then throwback, the lady who used to be she was called Photo Chick, photo girl at the track, Merrittville. Her name was Julie Davidson. Her husband, Russ, also number 53 back in the street stocks, early 2000s, mid 2000s, that I remember.
Nice. I'm going with Daryl Fairway in the modifieds, and you can go Matt Christie as well in the mini stocks. Also ran 53. Those are the ones that come to mind for me. And with all that, we should probably start with let's start with Ohsweken. Another not necessarily the ideal track condition, but improved. Correct?
Oh, it was way better. Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I only just got to run the heat race. I was in that crazy heat race where the only 3 cars finished, and did not go good for me. But
that's okay.
Bad night for me.
That's okay.
Yeah,
it happens. It happens to the best of us. So, you mentioned that crazy heat. We should probably start with that because that seems to be the highlight. I literally just put it on my Instagram story at Jonathon on Air. Also put it up on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast if you haven't seen it. But the GoPro footage from Aaron Turkey's car is quite wild. Friday Night Thunder shared that on Instagram, and it's something else, man. That camera took a wild ride, but obviously more importantly, Aaron Turkey took a wild ride and walked away from it. So I guess break down this wreck for anybody who has seen it or maybe people who haven't, Travis.
Okay, so I was a bit mad at Aaron during the week because when we started the heat, me and him were racing on the first lap, and we went down into turn 3, and I thought he threw a dirty, like, midget USAC slider on me, and he backed it across my nose, totally not good, and it was almost me and him in that big pile of wreck in 3 and 4. And then I ended up clipping the wall, and Bailey Hurd ran into me. He was running around there with no brakes. So, just a bad heat race overall for me. But, Turkey, I love you, buddy, but you were definitely driving a smidge over your head in that heat race. And then, ran over Corey Turner's right rear, and you all saw the aftermath of that. I'm glad he walked away. And he did say sorry to me last night on the Race Rivals show. So now I've forgiven him, but I was a little miffed at him because Aaron, that was the most over your head I've ever seen you drive.
Yeah, sometimes when you got good equipment and you get caught up in trying to run to the level of that equipment maybe a little bit earlier than you need to, and it happens. But I'm like you say, most importantly, glad that he's okay and glad that I assume the equipment is going to be repairable. But that was as
that car's definitely not repairable.
I mean, that car, I don't think I've ever seen a car come apart like that in any series. So
cars coming apart has been like a topic of the week. It started Thursday with bad wreck Justin Peck, Bridgeport with the All-Stars, where I don't think the cage fully broke during the wreck, but like the right side of it was affected. And then when they tried to lift it up with the tow truck, then it fully came apart. And it was literally like the down tubes. That's all there was tow truck. It was crazy sight to see. So good thing Justin walked away from that one too. But then Aaron's car cockpit stayed totally intact, but the front of it definitely blew up like I've never seen before in my life.
Yeah, and he basically crossed paths with Glenn Styres, and it turned into a real T-bone situation. It was ugly, but That was not the only flip at Ohsweken on Friday night, as Nick Erskine went for a wild ride in the mini stock feature a little later on in the night. Just one of those things.
Eric Gledhill in the
Yeah,
sprint
Gledhill.
feature. There was some in the crate
Maybe
heats.
that's our bad.
I think Murdoch. I saw him with a busted
Yeah,
up wing. It was just one of those nights. The whole weekend seemed to be pretty like, and then Indy 500, that tire almost going in
yeah,
the crowd. So much crazy shit
yeah.
happened this
It
weekend.
was.
Oop, I said
That's
the S
fine.
word.
We got bleeped for a reason if we choose to bleep it. Yeah, no, this weekend was just wild, but yeah, also good racing action. I mean, let's break it down with who our winners were. Josh Hansen, I was very impressed. I've been impressed with Hansen in general to start this season. Um, Josh was somebody we caught up with on the show last year, and ever since that interview, I've kind of had more of an eye on Josh, and he really has been impressive. I thought that was a really impressive move to win against Bowman. Dylan Westbrook rounded out your podium. Liam Martin and Corey Turner rounded out the top five in 360s. But what did you think of Josh?
I've been watching Josh since first days of go karts, and he's always been a wheelman, and he's still wheelman now. So not too shocking there. And he spent a little bit of coin this winter getting a new motor. I saw a brand new Donut, and that thing definitely didn't look cheap. So it's definitely worth it though. Running good, first and second so far, leading
Yep.
the points.
Jesse Costa ends up winning the Strickland's Crate Sprint Car feature over Brett Stratford, Mac DeMann, Ryan Fraser, and Larry Gledhill.
McDeman actually got
Ooh,
DQ'd.
they haven't.
FYI.
Oh yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
see that here now.
That bumped Ryan Fraser into the top three. But shout out to Ryan Fraser for the
So do
top
we
three.
know? Did Frazier keep fourth in the points and all that, and they just got rid of third altogether? Because the results are showing that McDeman's DQ'd, yes, but still scoring Ryan Frazier fourth.
I hope not. That sounds pretty NASCAR, but
Well, didn't that happen? That happened at Merrittville last year when Nelson Mason got DQ'd. Where
don't get me
Yeah,
started on that one.
I know. Yeah. Well, we'll have to double check that one and see if how the points shook out for that and get confirmation one way or another. Clinton, let us know if you hear this. Ryan Beagle wins the Thunderstocks, keeping his hot streak going after winning at Merrittville on Monday. Follows it up with a big win Friday. Good stuff from him. Kyle Wirt ends up finishing second after he won the previous week. Donnie Lampman third, Mark Fawcett fourth, and Ron Logie round out your top five in the Thunderstocks.
Yep, I didn't see any of that. So, are we shocked Beagle won? No, I'm more shocked Dave Bailey didn't finish second, but not really because opening night feature winner Kyle Wirt finished second.
To be fair, Bailey DNF'd.
Ooh,
I believe he had a
rare.
rear end. Yeah, I think initially some folks speculated on the broadcast that it might be engine related. I thought I saw in the comments, but I think it was actually something to do with the rear end of the race car. So, um, yeah, Bailey ended up whatever it was. He was able to fix it pretty quickly, and he got back to Merrittville the next night. We'll get to that in a second, but yeah, Beagle off to a good start, and that's what that's what you're gonna need if you're gonna take out Dave Bailey. Is you got to win when he has one of his more catastrophic nights.
Definitely.
Ashton Dickey takes home the mini stock feature win, getting it over Ryan Hiller, Jason Tolton, Tristan De Silva, and Fabio Oliveri. And like I said, that one had a pretty wild wreck as well with Nick Erskine getting tossed. So I feel like pretty much every driver we've picked in the fantasy league
Not Jesse Costa
has had a
or Ryan Turner.
yeah. Okay, well, so far you've got a couple, but I think
You
pretty much
got
everybody
Beeks.
I've talked about at some point. Yeah, I got Beeks, but everybody else seems to start having issues now that we're
Yeah.
talking about it. So now I don't even want
Nico
to.
Hansen.
Now I don't even
He
want to
was
go through
having
it.
a good run, and he got caught up in that too. Josh's brother.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. And I've got the spreadsheet set up, so I'm just gonna punch in some numbers and maybe we'll make a graphic that you can see on our social media at Southern Ontario Dirt Show Podcast on Facebook and at sods_pod SODS_POD on Instagram and Twitter. That wraps up Ohsweken. Looking ahead to this Friday, should be a pretty solid night at the racetrack, I think, for you guys. First Friday race of June. Renway Energy presents Wall of Fame night.
Yeah, Wall of Fame night's always fun. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it this week. I got to go A good friend from my dart team passed away this week. He was also one of my best buds' fathers, so but he turned into one of my best buds too. So he was way more than just my buddy's dad, Kerry Toole. So I got to go celebrate his life this weekend. But yeah, everyone else going there, definitely have a fun night.
Yep. And while we're on this note, we also should touch on a couple folks who we're thinking of right now.
Yeah, Shrek, or uh, Chris Shrek Ostrom is the main one. There's a couple other people in that crash that were involved too, but they haven't been released on Facebook or nothing, so I'm not going to say anything. Shrek's the one I saw released, so definitely, yeah, get better, Shrek. Our thoughts and prayers are going towards you, and yeah, just what a rough week.
Yeah, and a couple of drivers paying tribute to him. I saw Charlie
Yeah,
Sandercox got the little Shrek doll riding with him this weekend, which is pretty cool to see, and lots of other tributes coming out as well for Shrek. So thinking of you, buddy, and hopefully you get well soon into all those others also involved that we are currently unaware of right now. With the heaviness sort of out of the way, let's talk about the Merrittville Speedway Saturday night show that we had because it was another dandy. How about Matt Williamson? The guy is on fire. 4 straight wins at Merrittville. He has taken it to new heights though because he started 12th and gained 11 spots on his way to winning it over Pete Bicknell, Ryan Susie, Dalton Slack, and Freddie Carlton. A chaotic modified feature, I should point out, as we had not one but 2 multi-car pileups that brought out red flags during the modified feature. One happened when Brad Rouse was trying to make a pass for, I want to say, maybe the lead on a restart, if not second place under Daryl Fairway. He tried to sail it in when there was probably maybe half a lane, maybe 3/4 of a lane, ran out of room, got squeezed, and shot back across the racetrack, and a couple cars piled in. And when a couple cars pile in from second on back, it gets pretty ugly pretty quickly. So that one was tough. And a couple of the guys who ended up in that wreck came back, like Dalton Slack and Ryan Susie, both got pretty heavy hits in that. And I believe Dalton may have even gotten a piece of the second multi-car pileup that happened on that restart as well. So shout out to all the drivers who were able to keep going on. Like even Tom Neal. Tom Neal was involved in the second incident when I believe he
and
got
he finished
turned,
sixth.
and he ended up finishing
That
sixth. Yeah.
might be
So
his best finish ever in the mud. So shout out to him.
yeah. And like I say, for a guy who I believe at one point was turned sideways in the middle of 2, if I've got my drivers correct, good for him to rebound like that and make it to the end. So wild night at Merrittville
Wild
in the
weekend.
modifieds. Wild weekend in general, yeah. A race that was not exactly wild though. The Sportsman. Nelson Mason goes wire to wire in a green flag full race, like just 25 laps of green flag action, no cautions, caution free, right choice auto and leisure sportsman event. That was cool to see. Taylor Van Der Zanden came home second, making it a kind of I don't even remember, Mace
Mace
race,
Race
is that? Yeah,
Motorsports.
Mace Race Motorsports, that's right. So that's a 1-2 for them and that team. And then Cody McPherson ends up third after starting 11th. Brent Bigelow moved up from 10th to 4th, and Chad Chevalier started 16th and brought it home 5th.
Yep. Sportsman going green checker happens every now and then. Every now and everyone says Sportsman's a wreck fest, but sometimes they switch and the modified's a bit of a wreck fest and the Sportsman's go green to checker. I think I made a crack about our buddy Nelson Mason at work this week. I said he was the biggest letdown so far of 2023, but I said there's also handicapping this weekend. Sure enough, he got his pole shot and he made it count.
Yeah, exactly. So now you made you eat your words just a little bit there.
I did say he was going to win this week because handicapping started as well, but before then, he
That's
was a
fair.
lunchbox letdown.
Well, and the other thing too with that is that's it's one of those things where it's not always a driver; it's a lot of times equipment too, right? I think they've had more than a few mechanical failures, at least from what I've seen at Merrittville. So can't speak to the other racetracks, but yeah, it's a tough start, but that'll cure a
That
lot
fixed
of
it.
things. Finishing a 1-2, right?
Yep.
Our guest later in the show, Pete Reid, won the Hoosier Stock feature with a pretty brilliant move. I gotta say, uh, I believe it was coming to the white flag. He was following in line behind Mark Fawcett, who was leading into 3 and 4, and Fawcett had to go around a lap car. And for whatever reason, the lap car chose to use the inside line through 3 and 4, not the outside. And on the exit of 4, slides up the racetrack. Fawcett's going to have to kind of chase it up the racetrack to give him room. And when that happens, Pete Reid makes the crazy dive to the inside down the front stretch, and he takes the lead. Although I think there was a little bit of contact, and Pete was apologetic for it at the very least. We'll ask him about that. Talk to him about the little dust up with Mark Fawcett. But a win is a win, and Pete Reid started 12th too, so plus 11 on the night for him. He ends up winning it over Fawcett. Rob Murray had a good showing, 11th to 3rd. Bailey goes 15th to 4th. And Zach Bleach 6th to 5th to finish out your top 5. And Zach Bleach also was involved in an incident too. So another driver who had kind of back to the front rebound type night.
Yep, and I keep saying he's going to get a win one of these days. Old Zachy Bleach.
I think so. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but I think he's knocking at the door for sure.
I think it took Billy a little while to break the cherry in the
Mm-hmm.
old street stock too. But once he did, he would win every Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, right. That's how it usually goes. Also racing that night, we had the Rona Deutsch Mod Lights. Josh Slider takes the win there. RJ Pitts, Tyler Winger, Leroy Buscombe, Rob Meisner. Although Slider was getting chased down by Brent Bigelow, who looked like he had a pretty fast car until some fluid started leaking out the back of it. And I believe he was able to finish here, but definitely was a lap or two down, ended up 13th.
Yep, so Josh heard me chirping him last week, and he got her done this week, but needed a little help from a rad hose that he
Yep.
probably installed on Brent's car. So,
Yep.
love you,
Oh,
Josh. Good
convenient.
job, buddy.
Are you starting to spit out conspiracy theories about the
No,
mod lights?
I just like busting Josh because he's my boy.
Yeah. Over on the 4-cylinder side of things, Olivier Larocque ends up winning it. Started 5th, finished 1st, gets the win over Kyle Rothwell, Cole Hardy, Tyler LaFontaine, and Alex Riley. So you had TMR cars second through. Well, sorry, Cole Hardy's not a TMR car, but 3 TMR cars in the top 5 on top of Larocque's win and Cole Hardy. So good for Olivier, though. This is his first Merrittville win, from what I understand. He's got some feature wins at Humberstone as well. But yeah, finally gets the monkey off the back at Merrittville because Olivier is one of those drivers that I've he's got kind of a unique car compared to the rest of the field in the mini stocks, and that makes him stand out to me. And he's just always been a driver that I've had an eye on. He's been fast at times. Looks like he's going to push for a win and never quite breaks through, but definitely broke through on Saturday night.
Yep, I've seen him win a Humberstone before, and always a fast car, and it was super cool to read a different name in the Merrittville headlines in the mini stocks.
Yeah, for sure, and it definitely shakes up the points too. Which we'll like probably wait till a month or two into the season. Points are starting to kind of take a tight shape at Merrittville, but I think we can wait to start looking at the points until maybe midsummer kind of thing. But if you do want to see the points for either Ohsweken or Merrittville or any racetrack, pretty much all of the racetrack websites have point standings available at any given time. Next week at Merrittville is the Brian Stevens Memorial and the family autograph night as well. So check that out. Hopefully, I'll see you at the racetrack. Family autograph night is really cool. The pole dash is something very unique that we do on the Brian Stevens Memorial night. $444 on the line, although it's been kicked up what has it been doubled, maybe tripled? I think that $444 amount. I'm trying to see what the latest news is. Looks like according to the Merrittville Speedway website, thanks to MP Delivery and S&W, looks
You sure that
like
wasn't the whole night?
I think there's some of it that's going to the pole dash though, so I'm just trying to clarify which's going to where.
Right.
The whole night, yes, $6,100 added to the purse across all 5 divisions, which is pretty cool. $2,400 in the modifieds, an extra $700 to the winner, $400 for second, $300 for third. Yeah, it looks like yeah. So here it is. So instead of it, the $444, it's not going doubled to the pole dash. It's going to be there's going to be a couple bonuses. So looks like Mike Payne from MP Delivery added $444 to the 4th place finisher, and Wayne Kahn and S&W Service Center added an extra $444 to the event or to the winner as well in the modified. So there's been a whole bunch of money added to the field. If you want to see who's added what to where, you can check it out. The full press release is up on MerrittvilleSpeedway.com under the news tab. So, but yeah, looking forward to the pole dash challenge I, for one, like this event. Uh, this year, we're going to use some fan participation instead of having drivers call each other out. We're going to have a random fan draw out of a hat who's going to challenge who in each round. So if you want to be a part of that and you're in the audience, sounds like you and I are going to hang out on Saturday night. Looking forward to that for sure. I don't know. Like for just one race event, I think the pole dash challenge is super cool. Having a 1v1 shootout around the racetrack to see where everybody starts. I love that concept. But again, it I only love it because we don't see it anytime except for once a year.
As long as there's extra money going to the drivers that are on the track, it's good to go.
Exactly. So the folks from Vansickle Pet Valu and PV on the Lane aren't just fans of your favorite four-legged friends, they are race fans too. That's why Jeff and Rhonda Riley, as well as their staff, have teamed up with Merrittville Speedway to make your race day experience more convenient. Race fans can now pick up tickets for race nights while grabbing the highest quality food, treats, toys, and accessories for their pets from the St. Catharines and Niagara Falls locations. Each grandstand ticket will also have a voucher that can be used in-store for a free pet bath at their dog wash stations. Drivers and crew members can also skip the line by purchasing pit passes in-store, giving them more time to get their rides ready for Saturday nights. Check out Vansickle Pet Valu across from Best Buy and Walmart on 4th Avenue in St. Catharines, and PV on the Lane at the corner of Kayla Road and Lundy's Lane, Highway 20. Somebody who's a part of the Merrittville community, we should probably give a shout out to Cody McPherson. Speaking of winning, picked up a big check, $5,000 to win in a sportsman race down at Devil's Bowl in Vermont.
Yeah, went on a haul down to Vermont. I'm not sure how far that haul is. Got to be at least 5 hours. So,
I think it's
Devil's,
even more than that.
yeah, Devil's Bowl. It's been dirt, pavement, back to dirt, and Cody figured it out in his first shot. Let's talk about SOS next. That's the thing we were forgetting.
Yes, we should get to the SOS because the first SOS event of the season happened Saturday at Southern Ontario Motor Speedway. And you were not in attendance, as was, more than a few drivers. There was only 10 that took the green for the feature.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a rough start for Pete there in the SOS. And I got to talk about Daryl. He made that Facebook message, and it was pretty long-winded. I understand his frustration and all that. Wasn't cars there, and but like typically that track is pretty hard to draw sprint cars. Always has been. The only time I've ever seen over 20 cars there is back in 2012, I think it was. Ken Pelkey put together a 4-race series, but he had to bring in the ES. It was all like a combo race. It was like ESS, Patriot, Core Pack, whatever the Michigan series was back then. I think back then it might have still been SOD. He brought in all those kind of things, and we still only got like 25 cars combining all those series. So it's always been tough draw there. Most ones are usually 14, 13. Like it's always pretty low. So you can't really be too shocked. And then like Daryl, your post, like, I love you, bro, but like if we would have got the shows in at Merrittville and Brighton, we'd be talking about 30 car counts and big car counts to start, but Mother Nature ruined it. So I think that post was a little overreacted. I did not like reading that, buddy. I did not like it at all, especially with the fact when I learned later, Daryl, you weren't even there, bud. You were in Knoxville with Alex Hill. And you guys were both chirping that no one was there while you guys weren't there either. So maybe look at that. I hated to see it.
It's hard.
I just couldn't make it. I had a bunch of damage. Like, I'm sure we had a rough night the night before. But yeah, that's where I'm at on that.
Yeah, it's hard, right? It's one of those things where, like, you want to see certain tracks get a little extra love, a little extra attention. It sounds like Southern Ontario Motor Speedway really put a lot of improvements in over the off season. I know when we talked to Peter a few times on the show, he's mentioned that racetrack and trying to hype it up and get people out to it. All around, it's just a bad situation where. Like you say, if we got Merrittville shows in, we got some of the other racetracks, there'd probably be more cars who are willing to go out. But the other thing you brought up is there's 2 drop weeks on the schedule too. So
right, that's why that was part of my decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I'm literally still in the points. Read the rules. It says 2 drop nights can count nights missed. They're going to readjust the points with 2 nights to go, and so all those people we're still all in the points.
Yep.
And we're all going to be at Brighton. I guarantee it. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a B main at Brighton. So don't jump off the bridge yet. You guys are doing a great job, and it's going to be great. If we would have got Merrittville in, there was no ESS. Like, there was going to be 30 cars.
Yeah.
So
Well, the other
another thing about Buxton, one more
yeah.
thing, is because like they said there was a whole bunch of extra money, which they do are the hard charts and they do have little extra bonuses, but all the main purse money went to the top, which is what I always say is the wrong thing to do. You should put it from 5th on down or 10th on down, or if it would have been 400 to start, I probably would have sucked it up and dragged it out there, even though I wasn't feeling too much into it mentally. But and then the other thing that made like the non-wing guys, they told us literally on this show that I wouldn't be able to pull my wing off after the night and run the feature, and then they went and let everybody do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I would have known that beforehand, I probably would have came too.
Yeah.
And then you guys, they literally reneged on what they said they were going to do.
Yeah, it's one of those hard things, right? Where like I feel like the car count influenced that, especially because
I get
right,
it, but
there's only two
I get
people
it.
or 10 drivers, right? So for me though, I I I, l- I think you make a great point about redistributing that money back through the field just a little bit further. Uh, I,
That's where all the lower dollar teams were looking,
yeah,
and like all the most of the big buck teams were there.
yeah.
It was all the little guys missing, and we're the ones looking at 8th through 24th for
The other
pay.
thing too is that I wanted to bring up is that it's been such a chaotic start at Ohsweken, and if we
Yep.
didn't have the driver flips, the damage, the things that have happened across the first 2 weeks at Ohsweken, maybe there'd be more guys who would be willing to make that trip or have their stuff in better condition. But just to make the shows at Ohsweken, I'm sure these guys are thrashing to get their race cars out, and then they go up there and they have some bad luck or whatever happens. It's just tough. It's just a tough situation all around. You hate to see it, but it's far from, it's a long season and it's just the start, and things are going to improve pretty
Yeah.
quickly, I would assume. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Give the rundown. I don't think we did yet,
of
did
the
we?
SOS finish, let me grab that.
D Dubs
Yeah.
won.
Which,
I'm done my rant
so, okay,
back. Sorry, Daryl.
here's another thing I want to ask. If, if you're one of the drivers who's maybe capable of winning, but you're not better than D Dubs regularly, does that discourage you from showing up? Like we
But
talked a little bit
if
about,
he's there,
because we
no.
talked about this a
But
little bit off the
well,
air today about how a driver like Matt Williamson, if you go and race him at Merrittville, you are making yourself better, even if he's kicking everybody's butt. He's showing you he's raising the level of competition, as opposed to saying, "Oh, I wish Matt wasn't there so I could win one," right? And it's kind of the
yeah,
same thing with the Southern Ontario sprints, with Ohsweken, with Dylan Westbrook back here racing with us this year.
yeah. But I love you, D Dubs, but he hasn't won one at Ohsweken yet. It's almost like our local competition has, like, while he was out on the road, we have risen up to him. Like we are now back to equal. There's no 7 race win streaks. I can't see one of them coming anytime soon. So
You're
we have
laying
risen.
you're laying the gauntlet down on this
But like,
podcast, I gotta say.
it's just still
Anyways,
the truth
all
I'm
right,
feeling.
you want me to run through the
Yeah.
lineup here? Dylan Westbrook wins it over Ryan Turner, Mitch Brown. That's your podium. Sean Evans ends up 4th. Darren Dryden with a great run in the top 5. Liam Martin 6th. DJ Christie 7th. Holly Porter in 8th. Nick Sheridan 9th. And Mike Farrell rounded the 10 cars who made it. Trailer Pros Hard Charger Award went to Sean Evans, +4 on the night. And QuickTime, Ackland Insurance QuickTime went to Ryan Turner.
Yep. See everybody at Brighton, where there's going to be 20 plus cars, and the world will be fixed. I promise. Paul Pacona Memorial. I can't wait.
It's gonna be a great night for sure. We got to touch on the Southern Ontario Super Dirt Car Series, and Southern Ontario's own Matt Williamson takes one of the wins of the back-to-back Super Dirt Car Series events from last weekend.
Yeah, he won Weed Sports. So, yeah, we got to talk about the money match, super mat drama that's going on. Like, it is pretty intense right
Yeah,
now.
this whole thing is so
They're the two
ridiculous
guys.
to me.
It's not ridiculous. I love it.
So
It
I
is
love the
great.
rivalry. Don't get me wrong. Matt Williamson, Matt Shepard, these two are clearly establishing themselves as the top dogs in the Super Dirt Car Series, at least right now in the moment. They are at the top of the standings. Shepard is only 3 points behind Matt Williamson, who has the points lead after, what do we got, 3 events now? So Jimmy Phelps in 3rd in the points, Darren Smith and Peter Britton. But this all started with the broadcast kind of accidentally, or maybe accidentally on purpose, mixing up.
That's not where it started at all.
So
That's not
okay,
where,
so you
like,
want to back it
2
up to
weeks
that.
ago at Weedsport, when Matt Shepard
Yeah.
won, him and Money Matt Matt Williamson were battling for the lead or second. They were both clearly the fastest cars, and they were going to the front. Matt got in a little bit too far on Shepard, and Shepard closed the
Yes.
door, and Matt ended up with the front end ripped out of it. And then during caution, Shepard drove by and gave Matt the sarcastic thumbs up. So we didn't touch, like, after Matt got done absolutely dusting the field at Weedsport, like straight up won by 16 seconds, lapped up to fourth, was 2-3 seconds away from lapping Matt Shepard himself. Matt made it upon himself to drive up beside Matt Shepard on the way to the scales and give him the thumbs up back. And then Shepard drilled him twice in the rear end. And then the one that really blew me away, after Matt Williamson, in true Matt Williamson fashion, called out all the keyboard warriors in his victory lane speech. And but Matt Shepard would not go to the victory lane picture. I could not believe that. Like the nine-time champ is so rattled by our little guy from St. Catharines, Ontario, that he won't even go get in his picture. What is that? What a terrible look for Matt Shepard, if you ask me. Like clearly Matt's getting in his head. It's working. Like, you go into his picture. And then, so yeah, that's where it all started. And then it carried over to Lebanon the next night, where Super Matt Shepard did pick up the win, but the pit announcer for Dirt Vision, I forget the guy's name, but holy smokes, bud, learn your drivers. He was calling Matt Shepard Money Matt. They even wrote it on the check. Was like, that's some sort of joke or something? Like what was that? I could not believe that announcer getting their names mixed up. Like, buddy, you got to be better than that. If you can't get them right, just don't say any nicknames. Like, holy moly, we should put our resumes in for that, because I guarantee you we would never make that mistake. I could not believe it. I was screaming at my TV at an announcer.
Yeah, you know what? What if it was accidentally on purpose? Like, do you think Shepard would have
I hope not.
talked to them and said, "Hey, you know what? Tonight I want to be Money Matt if I win, because it's a bigger check and it's a bigger race, blah 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 blah." Like,
maybe.
the more I thought about it, I was like, I wonder if somebody at a Shepard's camp put him up to it. But either way, this whole thing is so amusing to me, because it's obvious that it's just an ego contest at this point. Two rivals, you know. This is almost like a Intimidator versus Wonder Boy situation. It's probably at times friendly, but right now it sure doesn't seem like it's a very friendly rivalry right now. But I'm looking forward to it playing out, and I hope that when the Super Dirt Car Series comes a little bit closer to the border, and when we go cross the border, that all the six fans over here, but all the 88 fans show up in a big way and really represent Matt Williamson on the Canadian side of things, because I think that would
I'm
be
sure they will.
just hilarious if Matt comes over here, wins in front of a home crowd, and then things get nuts.
Yep. So that wraps up the Super Matt versus Money Matt stuff. But there was more drama from Lebanon Valley, because during the heat races, rivals Tyler Dipple and Peter Britton line up side by side. And at Lebanon Valley, because it's so high banked, the outside is actually the pole car. So they were getting into it. They have long-standing history going back to Super Dirt Week, and then it spilled over to a fight in Orange County. They've been going at it for a couple years now. Well, anyway, they beat their doors off down the front straightaway, and then Dipple slides him in one. Britton turns it under him. But then Britton's interview during the redraw, where he calls out and tells him he can't drive and all this stuff, and it's like, holy buddy. Like, a lot of people loved it. I loved it too, but Peter Britton, he gets like 1, 2, 3 wins a year, like telling another guy can't drive at all. Like, that was a bit much. And Dipple's won a few races too. Like, Dipple's definitely an unlikable guy. Like, that is a for sure. But to say he straight up can't wheel, meh.
That's just drivers that, in the heat of the moment, you know that you are one. I literally,
I know.
Rookie level pavement go-karts, and I got Ross Chastain, and I'm sitting here popping off the whole way back to the pits last Saturday. So we all know that drivers kind of forget to pack our brains when we put our helmets on, and then when we take our helmets off, you still got to put the brain back in there. So that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. But yeah, the Super Dirt Car Series, I know Mother Nature wreaked havoc to start the year on that series, but the drama is picking up.
Made up for it.
It's spicy.
Woo!
That series is spicy right now. You love to see it. Another kind of spicy week or event, at least, was the high limit race. So Walk me through again what exactly happened
Oh
with
my God.
Rico. He pulls a Mark Martin, and then his
TC
boy
Rantville
Kyle
today.
Larson helps him out with a little massage of the situation.
Yep. Yep. So whatever heat it was sunny going down the front straightaway. I do know what it's like. Sometimes you can't see the flags. I get it. But man, Rico slows down the back straightaway. I just want to point out that nobody else slowed down. They all the rest of them knew the race was still on. So caution comes out. It was clearly for Rico pulling the Mark Martin. They were going to put him tail, and then he's up to the front, and then no one knows what's going on. And then Larson stops on the track himself and makes the call to put him in front. Like, that to me was straight up mind blowing. Like, if that was Doug Leonard running that show, like, I give Doug Leonard some slack, but he would handle that 1,000 times better, because Larson would have been tail for stopping on the track for not a safety thing. And like, you can't be an official if you're going to drive. You want to be an official with your brother-in-law, Brad Sweet. Get out of the car and go in the booth. Like, that is straight up. You cannot let that happen. Worst look I've ever seen in a dirt race.
And then didn't they add an extra driver to the pole dash because of that?
Yeah, straight. Yep, Justin Sanders. He's the one that got screwed out of that deal. And they added him straight up Spingate NASCAR style. Like, they added Jeff Gordon to the playoffs back. Like, what a terrible, terrible, terrible look for that series in that call. And Brad Sweet did come out and was transparent about it. He even said he didn't know what to do. But gosh, so much stuff has happened in that series. And then, like, there was a bunch of flips in the A main and the first race. That guy got hurt, and then Alex Bowman got hurt at the second race. Like, I'm not even touching it all. So much more stuff has happened in that series. The dice thing is getting so out of whack. Like, so Parker Price Miller won the dash last night. They roll number 11. Clearly, he's not going to take an 11. And then they were pumping up all night. They're like, no matter what, Kyle Larson's going to take the challenge. No matter what. They go to Larson. Hey, Larson, will you start 11th for an extra 11th grand? No. I'll do it 8th minimum. So then they rolled again and got lucky, and it came up in 8, and he took the 8, won the extra 8 grand. He probably could have got it done from 11th. Like, if you're gonna race against the guys and take the money,
don't be a chicken.
Go to 12th every time.
What difference does it matter?
Don't be a chicken.
What difference does it make?
Like, oh, my car owner's gonna be mad at me. Well, hey, NASCAR boy, fund him. Like, pump him the extra money back. Like, I realize he's trying to do it to make money.
Series.
But like, he owns the series. Like, gosh. So much like, I couldn't believe it. Like, they thought they were going to be better than the World of Outlaws. They're making the World of Outlaws look pretty good with some of them calls.
Yeah, but are people watching and people paying attention? That's what really matters. So all this drama, all this extra stuff, it's just playing into it just the way it is. Look at NASCAR right now. Yeah. I mean, I will be the first to defend the racing of NASCAR, because that's what I grew up watching first and foremost. And the Coke 600 from a racing standpoint was an excellent race in terms of competitiveness and comers and goers, all that good stuff that makes a good race, at least in my eyes. But we're not talking about the fact that the Coke 600 was good. We're talking about Chase Elliott losing his mind and right rearing Denny Hamlin. You know, we talk about the drama. So I don't want to say it's manufactured in any sort of way. I don't want to get off conspiracy theory-ish, but they definitely don't make it. They don't. Kyle Larson has not made it easy on himself in that series with the talking points at the very least.
Definitely not last night. Definitely not last night.
Okay, everybody take a breath. Everybody take a drink. TC's done ranting. I'm done getting fired up. I don't know. Are you going to rant to our guest, Pete Reid? Okay. Well,
probably.
Oh, yeah, no, there is a topic actually we're going to bring up with him that's rant worthy. So stick around. Pete Reid coming up on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. The Southern Ontario Dirt Show is brought to you by Ohsweken Speedway, Southern Ontario's home for Friday night excitement. For over 25 years, Ohsweken Speedway has promoted and played host to sprint car racing with a new season of family-friendly events on the horizon and set to begin May 19th. Catch our own Travis Cunningham as he races weekly in the 360 division each Friday night in pursuit of a season-long championship. The Friday night lineups are rounded out by crate sprints, thunder stocks, and mini stock divisions as well. In addition to weekly racing, Ohsweken Speedway will also hold several marquee events for the Southern Ontario Sprints, the Action Sprint Tour in their West Series and National Series, as well as a visit from Canada's premier stock car series, the NASCAR Pinty Series, on August 14th and 15th for their only stop on dirt. Mark your calendars, as the 3/8 mile dirt track located in Ohsweken, Ontario welcomes drivers from across the country and beyond for the 19th running of the Canadian Sprint Car Nationals, which is scheduled for September 16th. To keep up to date with the latest news from the track, be sure to find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter For track information on policies, admissions, directions, and more, be sure to visit ohswekenspeedway.ca. That's OHSWEKEN Speedway.ca. Ohsweken Speedway, your home for Friday night excitement. The Southern Ontario Dirt Show is brought to you by Bicknell Racing Products. The last 40 years plus have seen Bicknell Racing Products grow to be an industry leader for racers and enthusiasts alike. Their St. Catharines location is home to 20,000 square feet of manufacturing and retail space, with a second store in Niagara Falls, New York, and a dealer network that continues to grow day by day to serve Southern Ontario, Western New York, and beyond. Bicknell Racing Products distributes Hoosier tires for much of Eastern Canada, New York, and even parts of Pennsylvania. BRP has everything you could need to keep your car performing at its peak, with genuine parts from the manufacturer. They even have a technical support line committed to helping you with the most up-to-date information and feedback from racers and crew chiefs. Have you ever thought about a career in the automotive or racing industry? Now is your chance to take the leap with Bicknell Racing Products. They are looking for CNC machine operators, welders, and more to join their team this season. Please send all resumes to Dana Curving at BicknellRacingProducts.com. That's DANA CURVIN at BicknellRacingProducts.com. For further information on Bicknell Racing Products and to find a dealer near you, visit BRP online at www.BicknellRacingProducts.com or on Facebook or at twitter.com/BicknellRacing. Pete Reid joining the show now, driver of the 05 Street Stock, Thunderstock, Hoosier Stock, wherever you see Street Stocks racing. Pete Reid is probably up towards the front, and it was up towards the front on Saturday. So, Pete, coming off a big win on Saturday, how's the week been?
Busy. Seems like every week's usually pretty busy around here. So, lots to do, lots to do.
Yeah, and you got it done on Saturday night against a very tough field, and you've been very competitive throughout the last couple of years, at least since I've started covering the sport and when it comes to street stock. So just talk to us about, well, take us through the win on Saturday night and the winning move, because I thought that was a super impressive move, the way you were able to dive under not only the leader at the time, Fawcett, but the lap traffic.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on tonight. First of all, let me say that. So yeah, tough field for sure. Street stock, Hoosier stock, whatever you want to say, is I think one of the toughest fields we've got around. There's a good 15 cars. I think that can win any week, any night, any place. One or two take off, once in a while. We just got to figure out what those guys are doing week in and week out, and hopefully be up there more regularly. I think we're always a top five car. Saturday we showed that track was good. A lot of track prep went in. It was great, great show, and we started 12th, I think. It was a little wild at the beginning. I think we were four wide going into three at one point in time
Yep.
with a couple other guys. Cautions fell, the way we needed to. Got to the bottom, where it seemed to be everybody wanted to be on Saturday. It was the bottom. Chased down Mark Facette. Stayed on his bumper. Got underneath him going into one. I don't think he realized I was there. And Nature of the Beast at Merrittville, everyone's trying to do the arc into the corners, right? The racing line, and like I said, I don't think he knew I was there. Got into him a little bit, moved him up the track, got underneath him, kind of bumped, railed a little bit, did a little, Robbins racing kind of thing, and let him go. Had to chase him down again. And the first time we got to the lap car, Mark waited for him, and I went to the outside, and it didn't work. So the second time we got to him, I think we're coming to the white flag, coming through 3 and 4. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna wait, see what happens. Mark pulled to the outside, coming out of 4, and I just kind of Hail Married it and drove more or less through the infield and went 3 wide, and it worked out. So beat Mark to turn 1 and came around for the win.
Yeah, it was an impressive one for
Thank you.
sure.
Yeah, so you talked about that move, Todd Burley, like the way people drive Merrittville. Like you can call it, some people call it the driving school line, or like Todd Burley used to call it the Merrittville chop, where you go in high and then you got to chop her down in 3. A lot of guys do that. That's what led to the contact there. Eh?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think everyone's trying to make it into a big circle, right? You mentioned the driving
Yeah.
school. Years ago, I did the driving school in go-karts, and the go-kart track's the same shape pretty
Mhm.
well, right? And everyone's just making it into a big circle to try and keep the momentum up. Myrtle's definitely a momentum track, and 3 and 4 is real sketchy for a lot of people. You either hit it and you're super fast through 3 and 4, or you miss it and you're skating up towards the wall. So Mark was on a rail, no fault to him. He was doing what he had to do to pull away from us, and we just kind of met in the middle, I guess.
Yep.
If you leave the bottom open, someone's going to dive bomb it into you, right? Whether it's me or one of the other guys, someone's going to try and dive bomb it in there. Especially racing for a win, right? You got to kind of expect that, and it worked out for us this time. Hopefully, it doesn't, come around to bite us in another race, but we'll deal with that when we cross that bridge.
For sure. So you mentioned the go karting in that previous answer. Just talk to us about how you kind of got started in racing and what led you up to this point in your driving and racing career.
Uh, well, I was always kind of around racing as a kid. On my mom's side of the family, she had some family members, and she grew up around Lancaster. Um, I remember hearing the Juliker name as a child. Um, and then I grew up in Niagara Falls, so my dad he used to actually follow around the NASCAR circuit with a friend for years. He'd tell me, stories of going around and watching race to race in the '70s, and I'd read all of his old stock car magazines, and I still have them kicking around somewhere. It's pretty cool to look back at the 30, 40, 50-year-old stuff, and so it just one thing led to another. I remember being 4, 5, 6 years old and sleeping in the bleachers through a modified race at Merrittville. Um, and our spot was always turn one, the second to last bleachers. We actually grew up with the Fargnolis there. Um, and yeah, one thing led to another. Eventually I said, hey, I want to try something, behind the wheel. So I was about, 10, 11 years old. Started, we didn't know anybody that was racing, really into it and whatnot. So we pieced together a go-kart. I think I raced my full season at 12 years old, won Rookie of the Year. I don't remember if I won a race or not, but we won a bunch of races. In the next 4 years, I won a championship down at Batavia Motorsports Park, which was actually a road course in Batavia, New York. That was a lot of fun, something different. And then, as the years progressed, got old enough, and I couldn't wait to get behind something that was a V8, right? And
Mm-hmm.
jumped into street stock. Street stock was the entry level class back then. We were on
Hmm.
pretty well stock truck motors and street tires, and we were all Monte Carlos, metric cars, pretty much.
What year is this? Did you say that already?
Would have been 2000, I believe. I got into street
Beautiful.
stock.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, and I was not very good to begin with. Had some old had some old junk, and got taken under the wing, of a couple wily veterans. And kind of progressed. I think we built. Kenny Winfield actually built my first Camaro. That was the first car we built. That was 2002. And came out. I think we won 4 or 5 races that year. Had that car for 3, 4 years. Won a bunch of races with it. Actually got my first trip in the ambulance to a hospital with that car.
Oh my.
Yeah, so that was fun. Yeah, and then over the years, I've taken a few years off here and there. Things like getting married. We're gonna move. We had, our son took a year off for that. But for the most part, yeah, I've been around Merrittville. I love street stock racing. I've never really had a big urge to move. Everyone says, "Hey, why don't you move up?" And I love street stock racing because I feel it's the last true stock car racing that we have around. Right, we're still using, mind you, it's not much stock anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
we're still using somewhat stock pieces. We make a lot of stuff. Like I make all of my own bodies and bumpers and stuff, and guys like Todd Gordon are keeping the sport alive. Making a lot of chassis and bodies, and it's not really a car that we can go to a store and buy parts and pieces for and bolt them together, right? There's still
Yep.
a lot of ingenuity. There's a lot of figuring out. There's a lot of scratching your head and, hey, does this work? Does that work? It's not, you know, here's a book, figure it out, and you go fast, right? So
Mm.
that's where I like street stock, and we've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of good people along the way. Race at a lot of fun tracks and win at a lot of fun tracks, and hopefully we're still doing it for a long time.
Yeah. So let's lead in. Let's go right to the LS with it. So like because we started off with how cheap like it was when you started, and now we're getting into crate motors. What is it like 8,800 from GM? The way it comes from
Yeah, I think
GM now. So depends where you
yeah,
go.
yeah. Before after exactly. Styres is the way to go because you don't have to pay the G man for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, $8,800. I was never really a fan of crate motors, to be honest with you. I was probably one of the last ones on an open motor, doing half decent. And back I was probably around 2014. I would say we were just hurting. They were trying to figure out the rules of why the Camaros are so much faster than the metric cars around that point in time. So they put an extra 200 pounds on all the Camaros, and it absolutely killed me. The open motor rule at that point, and pretty much what we have now, other than the 305s, they had no torque. Like if a place like Ohsweken where you could really wind them up and keep them, revved up high, they'd be okay. But restarts and places down here like Humberstone and Merrittville where you need a lot of torque to get out of the corners and whatnot, it was a dog, absolute dog. And I had a long-standing relationship with my engine guy. I love Precision in the Falls. They did a lot of work for me, even through my job and whatnot. So I felt terrible when I went and bought my first crate motor. I didn't even tell him about it. And we both, I think we ran like 10th or 12th one week, and I'm like, we got to do something, right? The car is handling good. They're pulling 4 or 5 car lengths on us out of the corners. So we went and bought our first crate. I think we bought,
Yeah, what'd you pay?
I think it was like $3,500.
That's probably it. Yeah.
Like around there, and it was probably around 2014. Again, got it from Styres, brand new, and Bicknell's was doing the exchange program at that point. So went straight from Styres down to BRP, got one that was sealed up with the BRP and the Merrittville seals. Dropped it in the car, went and up to Ohsweken to basically break it in, try it out. I was running up there a lot more at that point, and finished third. Like, and I think we won the heat race and finished third. First time I hit the gas, the tires are blowing off the thing. I'm like, oh wow, this is different, right? Went down to Merrittville the next night and won.
Nice.
So yeah, word got out. Precision calls me Monday. Hey, congratulations on the win. I'm like, yeah, I got something to tell you guys, and they knew, right? They knew right away, and it was like, well, we can't believe that you didn't go to it sooner, right? So I mean, they get it, but now we're to the point where they haven't really changed much. They even, the pistons are better, the cranks are better than they were, almost 10 years ago. But we're what, like 300% markup from,
Yeah.
from what it was back then, and it's still basically a glorified truck motor.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, in all reality, if you go to, a wrecking yard and pick out a motor from a 94 Chevy pickup, it's roughly the same heads. They're Vortec heads, they're flat top pistons. There's nothing special about them. And we're paying almost 10 grand, over 10 grand once they're fully dressed to drop in a car, right? I mean, we talked about my first year in street stock at being 2000. Sure, that was 23 years ago, but I paid 3 grand for a turnkey race car, got in it and drove it that weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like yeah, that's not even, that's maybe a set of tires and a transmission at this point in time,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
It's
the
it's
crate
really
motor
wild
deal,
too. Sorry to interrupt, but it's really wild too when like I'm talking in Victory Lane with Matt Williamson, and he's talking to me about paying almost the same amount of money to get a used W16 that he drops in and can go and win a race, right? So
yeah, yeah.
the crate expense has definitely gone up for you guys in a pretty sharp way, pretty quickly.
It's gone really quickly, and the problem with that is when we were first putting the crates in the cars, they tried it once or twice with a street stock. I think the Sportsman had already gone to it, and the idea was the Sportsman guys would use them for a year or two, sell them to us, and we'd wear them out. Well, racers, we're not going to buy used junk. We're going to go out and buy our new stuff. But it was still relatively equal for buying a crate engine brand new with brand new parts. They cooled better. They had better torque. Um, to building our own motors that we could get into. And then now, I mean, sure, it's more expensive to build a motor, or for someone like me, or someone else that's a little bit more mechanically inclined, and they're not, they don't want to just go out and buy something and put it in their car. But for $8,800, I would expect a lot of motor for an $8,800, right? And it hasn't gone any much, the technology in the engine hasn't gotten that much better.
Nope.
Like, I get it, COVID, all this, everything's gone up, right? We're all paying out the rumps for everything. But I mean, we're trying to grow car counts and we're trying to get people with these old cars or building new cars or whatever out on the track. When they see that $8,800 price tag, that's just a jaw dropper,
Mhm.
right? Well,
Mhm.
I've been pushing the LS motors for a long time, probably 2016, 2017. Because that first crate, I was on the second year and I had to put a set of heads on it, right? So I mean, and I try to take care of my stuff. Everyone does, right? But it was a bad batch of heads. It tulipped a couple valves, so now I'm another $1,000 into this
Yep.
$3,500 motor that's a year old, right? Whereas our open motors at the time, I'd bring it down to the machine shop every year. They take it apart, maybe put some, a couple $100 worth of parts and labor into it, and I'd be good to go for another season. Whereas these crate motors, like we're putting valve springs in them 2-3 times a year. Some guys are doing them like every 3 nights. Um, just all kinds of stuff, right? Just maintenance stuff, and we're not allowed to build anything that is equal to a crate engine. Like we can put a 305 in it with Vortec heads, but if you want a 350, you're putting 40-year-old Smogger heads on that they don't work. They're not meant to do what we're doing with them, and they don't cool or the crap, right? So there's quite a few guys that have gone the 305 route with a standard now. I think Fawcett's actually one of the guys that's doing very well with it. I think Murray had one last year, and it's working, but it's still expensive, right? Whereas if you get into the LS stuff, a bone stock 5.3 with a small cam is going to make almost identical numbers that a 602 is going to make. I've talked to guys all over North America running them in all kinds of dirt cars, all kinds of asphalt cars, and to the point where I even talked to one guy, he did nothing in his car. He just drove. So he blew up a crate motor, took it to the shop. His guys ended up putting an LS in it, a 5.3 with a stock LS7, so like a Corvette camshaft in it. They're not crazy lift, right? I mean, it's like maybe like a 460 lift or something like that. I'd have to check the numbers. But they put it in his car. They put a carburetor kit on it. He went out and raced, and he couldn't even feel the difference. And I said, well, what did it sound different? Did it pull different? He's like, from behind, the butt dyno, exact same. He didn't know until after the race that they put, went out and swapped it out on him because they wanted to try it. It was something new for their series. And this is 4 or 5 years ago, right? If you go on Facebook now, there's all kinds of groups. If you just search LS groups, you're bound to find one for an oval track car or something, right? They're putting them in sprint cars down in the States, street stocks, late models, all kinds of stuff. And the price of them is ridiculously cheap, right? I mean, you go to a Wreckers and ask for a 5.3 out of a truck, 2000 to 2010, say Chevy pickup, you can get one with everything you need for less than $1,000. So my idea was always to give us a cam rule, right? So again, say a stock LS7, whatever lift they are, to get us a little bit more, and then you put a carb intake on it, run the same carburetor we're running now. You have to buy like an MSD or something to basically fire off all the coil packs. Your headers are a little bit more expensive. Your pulleys and stuff like that are a little bit more expensive, but you're going to be around the same price to get up and running. But when you blow one up, you go to the Wreckers and you're another $1,000. Drop it in your car, you're good to go. Whereas now we're spending almost 10 grand again to be up and running the next week, right? And this isn't just a street stock problem, right? I mean, you see it all over the place. All these guys running crate motors, they hate them, right? And how many of these guys in other classes, they're stock,
Mhm.
right? And they've
Mhm.
taken it to somewhere and they've been blueprinted and all sealed, and so now this motor that's supposed to be making 350, 360 horse is almost 400 horse or over 400 horse, right? So it's just getting ridiculous. I mean, it was a great idea when it first came out, but I think we're past it and we need to try something different.
Okay, so the problem is when you blow one up, then you got to put the other cam in it too, right? So like a guy that couldn't do it himself, that's gonna, that's the kind of thing. The one thing about racing, like, there's not as many guys that can do stuff for themselves anymore, and that's another main problem.
Yep.
But yeah, I definitely. But like the tech thing, that's everyone. Is that everyone's pullback? Like, what's the pullback from going to the LS that you get?
I've never really gotten a pullback towards it. It's just always nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing
Yeah.
that. We can't. I think a lot of people are scared of the modern computers of it, But if you get away from and you put a carb intake on it and use the exact same carburetor, the only thing really computerized would be your coil driver, right? And the W16s that you had mentioned that they're running in the modifieds, they're LS based, right? They're
Yep.
basically
Hmm. Exactly.
with a distributor on the front. So I mean, it would suck to put out that little bit of extra money to convert it to a distributor, but we could do that too, right? It's just basically you pull the front cover off, you get a driver kit, and then you've now converted your LS to a distributor, and it's basically a small block Chevy, right? For what it's worth. I mean, all the parts and components are a little bit different, but it's all the same stuff. It's just a V8, you know. So as far as what the pullback is, I think it's just everyone's scared that it's going to be something different to tech, and then it's going to be something, you know, somebody's going to figure something out and take off with it, and it's going to be a whole mess, you know, to figure out.
Well,
But
that could happen too.
exactly, but that's just the nature of the
I
beast,
know.
right? That
I was gonna say
that's
that's all
racing.
arguably happening already with crates, anyways, with the guys who are blueprinting them
Well,
and
to
everything
me,
else.
as like
So
an engine guy, like what are you going to do to stop blueprinting? Like they're to the specs. What are you going to do to stop it? If that's the rules, what are you going
Yeah,
to like?
yeah.
How is that illegal to me? Like,
Well,
especially
and one of the things I always said, even with the crates, is if they just give us the specs and say, look, this is what a spec crate motor has in it. These are the cranks, these are the rods, these are the pistons, yada yada yada. Right? These are the cam that they're running. We all know what the specs are. We all know what they're supposed to make on a dyno. So let's say a bone stock, you know, with a two barrel, whatever we're running in our cars makes, you know, 360 horse. Okay. Why can't we, someone like me that can, you know, get in and change something and fix something, take it apart and save myself a ton of money? Why can't I go and build that exact same motor, put it in my car? And if I'm over competitive, if they see that I'm pulling, you know, 4 car lengths out of the corner, there's enough engine dynos around now to say, okay, Pete's doing something here. We're yanking that motor. I remember, you know, when we were on open engines, I was pulling cylinder heads after 3 wins. It didn't matter if you won by an inch each one of those times. If you won 3 races in a year, you were pulling cylinder heads at the track. So why can't we do the same thing with pulling a motor out, bringing it to one of the dyno shops? I know there's lots even in the Niagara region, let alone Ontario. And if my engine that I've built makes, you know, say 10%, let's say 10%. If it makes 10% more horsepower than a bone stock crate motor, then I'm done. It doesn't matter what's in it or what I've done to it. If I'm that much more, I'm done. You don't have to do anything more than that. But if I'm making the same numbers as a crate, that's obviously not where I'm winning, right? I'm legal. You don't have to, other than pulling the motor out, you don't even have to open up a valve cover. You don't have to pull a head off of it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to mic anything. You don't have to figure anything out, right? The number is whatever the number is. They say computers don't lie. So if they know what a crate motor should make on a dyno, they should know what a built crate motor is going to make on a dyno, right? They got to let us do something.
yeah, I don't hate the idea of letting people take the stuff apart themselves, but
Yeah.
you just gotta have good tech guys and stuff like that. But like to me, that Vortex stuff's pretty easy to tech. Like they're pretty. I don't know.
Well, I mean, even with, so we can run Vortex on a 305 now.
Yeah.
And one of the things when I suggested, you know, letting us build a spec crate motor years ago to Pete Bicknell was I, at that point in time, had a stroker motor that had Vortex motors on the street, and he asked me what it made. And I'm like, oh, a little over 500 horse. And it was fairly, you know, there wasn't much done to it. Big cam and a little bit of head porting and obviously a stroker kit, but you know, I'm over 500 horse, and he's like, that's why we can't do it, because a little bit of head work, you know, and then you're into pulling intakes and you're into this and that, and nobody wants to attack that. So I understand that, but that was, you know, that was probably a good 10 years ago, and we didn't have the dynos around that we do now.
mhm.
So I'm sure there's enough guys in power, you know, with more contacts than I have that know someone with a dyno that would say, hey, throw my name on that sign up there in turn 4. And if you ever need a dyno, a motor, call me up. We'll pull it down. I'll run your numbers. We'll
Yeah.
make 3 runs with it. Right.
The only thing about
Yep.
dynos, like always tell guys when they tell me, "Oh, my engine found 40 horse on the dyno," like sprint car guys and stuff, like, "Well, if you changed anything? Because if not, your guy might be playing with the dyno." But anyway, right? But
Yeah.
like, if you do know a reputable guy, like my personal preference, like for stuff like that, especially with crate motors, because like so much to do with the atmosphere and stuff, and like you can totally like make some phone
Yep.
numbers on a dyno too, right? Especially
Oh, for sure.
if you're just pulling your engine, like if you do 3 in a row on the same day,
You know,
that's
yeah,
different.
you'd have to
But if you were
compare
just
it. You'd
doing
have
yours alone, then it could be a little harder. But I would personally recommend Fred Smith in Cayuga because he's an old dragger guy, and like I guarantee you, his weather would be perfect in the dyno, and what
sure.
it's making on his dyno would be 100% perfect. And then yes, that would work.
Yep, sure.
Yep.
It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the way I see it. Is, especially with street stock, it the hardest stock car racing to me is guys getting out and building stuff from what they found in their backyard, what they found in their wrecking yard, and I think we need to get back to that a little bit, right? That's just
All of racing
that's
has to get back to that. Like that's me. I build my own engines. I'm like the only guy
yep,
out there.
exactly.
But everyone, I always think I'm like, oh, everyone complains about how much work is, and like, yeah, and all they have to do is call their engine guy and go like, hey, is my motor done yet? And then lift it up and put the 8 bolts in. Like,
That's right.
try building
Yep.
all that and see how much work it is. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
but that's also how you save money and make it affordable when you're saying, oh, how it's so expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
It's a pretty wild thing the way that the world of racing is going. And something else that's kind of wild. I don't want to shift gears too aggressively here, but Pete, I have to ask you while we have you, where did the nickname the Crazy Alien come from?
So that was back to the go-kart days. And even to this day, I've always had at least a Marvin the Martian sticker or whatever. I don't even know where the first one came from, but I had a little Marvin the Martian sticker on my go-kart. And I was a little hot-tempered back then,
Oh
believe
boy.
it or not. And I don't remember what happened exactly. We were running up front, got wrecked, went to the back, and I was cutting through carts, going high, going low, going, just being crazy. So someone said it was always my mom and I that was at the track back then. Someone mentioned to my mom, man, he's driving like he's a crazy alien out there. So she told me that after, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny, right? So then it just kind of, the next week someone mentioned it, and a couple other weeks later someone else said it, and it just kind of stuck. The year after we started putting it on the cart, and just kind of stuck from there. So
That's awesome. That's one of the more unique nicknames out there going.
Yeah.
So
First
one of my
car,
favorites.
like I can remember you was like a red 05 with green on it. You had like that Martian in it, on the
yep.
post,
Oh
right?
yeah.
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 Okay, so now on the cars. So like talk about all the different types of cars you've raced as a street stock. Because I know that one year you built that big boat of a thing and you won a couple races with it. What was that thing again?
No, that was actually the only one I never won a race
Oh,
with.
it was huge. What was it?
It was a 76 Olds Cutlass S.
Yes.
So
Oh, wow.
it was like the whole NASCAR.
Yeah.
Like if you look back to the 79 Daytona 500, they were still running those cars.
Yeah, and this wasn't that long ago.
And this was, I think, 2012, 2013.
Oh, man.
We ran it.
So,
Yeah, I know we're showing our age, eh?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd taken a year off. I had a metric car, sold it, and when we got married, my wife and I in 2008, we'd actually planned to move to North Carolina and try something down there. That's when the economy crashed real bad, so it never happened. So a year later, 2 years later, we started to come back, and I'm like, I want to do something completely different. Everyone's running metric cars, Monte Carlos. Everyone's running Camaros, and my mom was always a big Mopar fan, so the talk was, let's build a Duster or a Demon or something like that, and it was just like the motor costs were ridiculous and everything. It's like, no, we're getting into today's cost basically. So okay, we're gonna stick with GM, and uh, basically the Chevelles and the mid '70s Olds Cutlasses and stuff were more or less Camaro front suspension, but a larger version of the 4-link that they have in metric cars. So on theory, on paper, it should have worked that much better. And now that the car is destroyed, I can tell you all the tricks to it. The chassis under that car was actually a '94 Caprice chassis that we cut down because
Huh.
uh,
Wow.
because
So
the,
weird.
the factory wheelbase would have been, I think, 112, and the Caprice chassis was 116. So we cut it down. We actually took a little bit more out of the left side, so it already had a left turn into it. Everything on that car was Frankenstein. There wasn't a stock piece on it, but that was the whole idea, was to have something that nobody else had that we could just try a bunch of stuff with. And I think it would have worked really, really well if we hadn't dropped the cage as low as we did. Because if you look back at pictures of that car, it's really low. Like, even it's like the car is long. It is long overall, but the roof line was really low.
Too low
And
for
then we
dirt.
dropped. Exactly. It wouldn't roll. It would have been an amazing asphalt car.
Yep.
And it worked really well at Ohsweken. Like when it got like real dry slick, we could just run the top and it was just super flat. But down here, it wouldn't roll, it wouldn't turn. We couldn't really make a lot of the adjustments that we needed to in the suspension wise, like we can now. We couldn't have the any wedge bolts, any adjustable spring cups or anything. So we were just trying to figure something out with springs, and after 2 years, I got frustrated. I think I got 2 seconds with it, and I'm just like, no, this isn't working. And on a tight track like Merrittville or Humberstone, it was a big car, right? So, I mean, you're an extra 6 inches wide or an extra 12 inches long trying to fit through the same spots guys with Camaros and Monte Carlos are fitting through. And it just wasn't working. So I absolutely loved it. I loved the look of it. I forget who the announcer was back then, but he was calling it the spaceship because of the nickname. And and everyone's like, "Oh, it's the spaceship! It's the spaceship!" And that car got a lot of people interested in it, but I never won a race with it. That's the only one I've ever built that I didn't win a race with.
Okay, so all the other cars, quickly.
So, first 2 years was a metric car that we bought. It was actually an old Alec Whalen car, so one of the old 5.0 taxi cars. After that, we built Kenny Winfield built us a chassis. It was an offset chassis for a Camaro. Ran that for a few years. It's still kicking around. They outlawed it here, and then now it's legal again, so it's still kicking around. Last I heard, Ron Logie had it and sold it to somebody else. Then after that, we went back to a metric car. That's when I got hooked up with Jack Castell, who was the sponsor there on Saturday. So he built that chassis. He built a bunch of other chassis, Mike Dooley and who else? Dolph McCready had my car was basically a mirror image of Dolph McCready's championship car. Then after that, we went to, what did we go to after that? I think after that we sold that in 2008. Tyler Anderson bought that. And then we built the Oldsmobile, and then that didn't work after a couple of years. So I built the Camaro that we have now. The Camaro that I have now is actually 11 years old now. So
wow.
Yeah, she's some old iron, but we'll keep her around.
She works.
Well, she works and she's winning, so why not? Pete, this has been an awesome interview. One of my favorites so far. It's been nice to have two engine guys go back and forth about it, and I'm just sitting here like, oh yeah, LS. Those are the videos I watch of like Honda Civics getting swapped with those things. Yeah, I can see that in a Camaro, right?
Yeah, I'm sure we can find a turbo in it somewhere. They wouldn't find that, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. No, not at all. I can hear it whistling as it's coming down the front stretch. Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah, we get some mufflers. Figure it out.
Yeah, no blow off valves for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get you out here on this one. This is kind of our last question we ask everybody who comes on the show, and it's if you could drive one race car at one racetrack the rest of your life, what's the combination you pick?
Like permanently?
Yeah.
So it can be permanently, or it can be like, hey, this is it, one last one. It can be like a total fantasy car, something you've never had the chance to drive that you always wanted to.
Wow.
Whatever you want.
Well, as a kid, the dream was always to go Cup Series racing. So I'd love to take a Cup car around Bristol or a short track with it. It's just like an old school Cup car, well, old school, like early 2000s when they were,
Gen 4.
Yeah.
Gen 4, Twisted Sisters.
Twisted Sisters.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. At 9,800 RPM.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Either that or I'd love to try drafting. I feel like I'm a thinker when I'm out there, so I think I'd probably be pretty good at drafting. But I guess we'll just have to leave that to the video games for now.
Good answer.
That's a good answer. I like that one. Pete Reid, thank you so much for coming on the show. Good luck the rest of the season, and keep that 05 pointed in the wind, all right?
We will try. Thanks so much for having me, guys. This was a blast.
Yeah, this is an awesome one. Pete Reid on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast.
Thanks, guys.
And the Checkered is out on another episode of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show presented by Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Like what you hear, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook at Southern Ontario Dirt Show, or find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SODS_pod. Have a question for the show? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com. Thanks for supporting local racing in Southern Ontario, and we'll see you at the track.